Lost and Found in the heart of Shaw. My in-laws bought this building in 1986 for pennies, I'm sure. Across the street is the DC Convention Center, but at the point when I first found out about this area, there were tires burning, there were rats the size of cats running up and down the street. It was rough. My wife's uncle had bought a warehouse in the middle of the alley behind here. It's called Blagden Alley, and he kept saying to me, buy this building, buy this building. He was talking about this gray building here. I was a carpenter at the time, and I didn't want to buy anything down here because it was rough. He was like, you'll never regret it. And then he pulled out a map and he showed me, he said, look at the Capitol, there's the White House, there's downtown, and this is just a few blocks from all of it. It will change. Well, he was a smart guy, and it did change. I'm not a smart guy, and I didn't buy this building, but my in-laws owned the building next door, and it was sitting pretty much abandoned. And I said, hey, why don't we just turn it into a little bar and kind of handshook deal, and eventually created a lease, and we opened Lost and Found. My partner in Lost and Found is Brian Leonard, and Brian had been a manager of ours at Nanny O'Brien's, and before that worked with us at Rocket Bar. It was great to be able to take a guy who I knew would be a really great partner and bring him into a deal, and Lost and Found has been here for over 10 years, and I'd love to take you inside and show you around. Come on in. Lost and Found. It's like a shotgun shack. It goes from 9th Street, skinny all the way, bar in the front, bar in the back, and then a back door that opens into Blagden Alley. When we first started running a bar here, it was really just a little private party place that we used for our own thing. We had the bar, which we had bought from my guy Carter Anderson, who has found more cool stuff for me than I can even begin to tell you about. And it was from a bar in Baltimore. It was probably 100 years old when we got it. We brought it in 2 pieces, and it looks as if it grew here. You know, the whole idea was just to be a dark, smoky bar without the smoke, to sort of be celebrating things that are salvaged and found and, repurposed. Record jackets from the 60s and 70s. We've got old funky lights and weird things. We've got a pickup truck tailgate that is a bench. It was never meant to be anything more than a warm place where people could gather. Like so many of our other places, really a neighborhood hub, and it's fulfilled that mission in a heartbeat. We've had some sort of challenges getting open here. In the beginning, it was, who's really going to come here? This isn't a really dense neighborhood. Blagden Alley wasn't anything when we started. It was really just, there were no other restaurants or bars back there. It's where you went to throw your trash out. What happened though, miraculously, is the neighborhood blew up around us. They knocked down Fight Club, our skateboard neighbors, and built a big condo building next to us. They've built condos down the block, around the corner. Hotels have come in. People have moved into the neighborhood in droves, and it's now a really popular neighborhood, a great place to live. Here we are at this bar, surrounded by restaurants, all-purpose pizza next door. We serve a lot of their food to our customers, buy great food from these great restaurants, and you can sit at our bar and watch a game on TV. So it's kind of that nice blend of just a place you can hang out and not have a lot of pressure. The name Lost and Found was interesting. When I grew up in DC, by the end of the 70s, we were sort of roaming all over town, going out wherever we could get in. Drinking age was 18 then. Downtown, where the Nationals baseball stadium is now, were a bunch of clubs, and one of them was Lost and Found. And that's where the gay nightclubs were during a time when it was very hard for gay Washingtonians to have places that were their own and not be discriminated against. I always loved Lost and Found because it was just such a joyful, great place to go. And so I wanted to celebrate that place. And also the idea that everything in here was either lost and found somewhere, at a junk store or, out of an old building. So we have at this table, behind the Halloween decor here, we have an old Lost and Found matchbook and a postcard and a picture of Lost and Found. Occasionally we'll get a couple of folks who come in here who remember that bar and remember that time in DC and the community that Lost and Found hosted. And it was, I think, magical. Giving a nod to them with this name was important to me, and sort of as a history of DC, as acknowledgement to other bars and clubs that were here long before we were. And to say that, this whole cycle of cool places to hang out, bars, we come and go, but we leave a trail, and hopefully we've made people happy along the way and made their either visit to DC or life in DC better in some way. The staff here is amazing. They're consistent. It's been the same people. I mean, I would say for 20 years, except we've only been open for 11. But it's really just the same folks who stay a long time, like many of our other places. I mean, this becomes a family, and it's really a satisfying feeling as somebody who's built a bar like this to know that we've created that community and that the customers and the staff and my partners, and it's just a home for a lot of people. One of the great influences on building this was Jimmy Fowler. Jimmy's a phenomenal carpenter, and I worked as a carpenter for many years, and I've built a lot of things in my life, but I've never worked with a guy who can produce things as fast with such intensity as Jimmy. Jimmy would come in and say, all right, now tell me what you want to do. He would just start cutting and sawing and boom and bang. And the only time Jimmy got frustrated is if he reached a lull in the operation. He wanted to keep building stuff. And he just began to be able to read my mind after many years of helping me build bars. And so I'd say, do this, and he'd sort of do that, but he'd say, I was going to do that, but I did it this way because I know that what's going to happen is it's going to create a bottleneck. So I moved this over 2 feet. If I'm 80% responsible for what happened in building this place, that's generous because I have this sort of vision. Guys like Jimmy and Chris Biebel and Steve Palzinski and these other like genius creators, guys who built it with their hands, would take my idea and kick it around for a while and come up with improvements that really made these places great. For instance, I'll show you something. Here we have some pipes that go downstairs and ducts that go downstairs. What do? You got to hide them. Well, they hid them behind metal panels, old reclaimed metal panels that come down. You'd never think like, what is that? Oh, it's a sewer pipe. Okay. What's that? Oh, it's an air duct. We could have just had the ducts there and that would have been fine, but these extra levels of detail are what make these places so special. People build bars and they go to amazing lengths. I've done it myself to create beautiful bars. But we didn't have any money on this one. We had a really skinny budget. This is just plywood, but we stained it and deep and dark, and we've refinished it since then. And it's become a bar that has character now. And it's just 2 sheets of plywood glued together. Actually 1 sheet with just a little nose on it. And then the face of the bar is old reclaimed beadboard from, some project that we bought from my buddy Carter Anderson, a guy who just every time I'm building one of these, Carter, what do you have? And he comes up with all kinds of funky pieces of factories and buildings that have been knocked down, old churches. Who knows where he's been, but he's got it. And he's like, I think you need this. And I'm like, I don't know if I need it now, but I'll buy it anyway. And then, try to incorporate it in the bar. Back here, one of the fun things, this is something I'd wanted to do for a long time. Wanted to do it as a bench, but we decided we needed a table more. So, an old Chevy pickup truck tailgate. We got Halloween decorations up, but, got some stools here. You're sitting there, and if you want to make a point, you're talking to somebody, you just do that, and you knock all the drinks off, and everybody pays attention to you. I don't know, I haven't seen this anywhere necessarily. Along the way down here, license plates. I love license plates. If you went to Alabama, there you go, 1961 to 64 national champs. There's something great about the patina of these old plates all just on the wall together. I don't think people stop and stare at them necessarily, but as you walk through, you feel it. As you get back here, this was just the garage for this building. We wanted to put a bar back here. We weren't sure exactly what we could fit, but again, I think Carter had this old bowling alley, and this is a solid bar. It's a little bit of a piece of work to do. We had to put a nose on it, and we had to do some other things, but again, it's a bar that when you sit here, it feels good. And there's something about the feel, the tactile sense of a good bar that's hard to describe. A kind of a crappy plasticky bar or something that's too shiny and too sort of corporate feeling, that shines through. When a bar feels like that. When something is legitimate and has the sense of craftsmanship and the idea that somebody took time to create this, I think it goes a long way to making customers feel as if they're part of something. The other cool thing about this bar is that this floor actually slants in this room because it was a garage. I like to sit down here because I'm a tall guy and I can, put my elbows in here, but if I go to that end of the bar, the stool is probably 8 inches closer to the top of the bar because the floor goes up. I don't know if anybody ever notices that, but it's one of the things I love looking at in here. Another great thing Carter came up with is these old factory dies. They used to make factory parts using wood as the mold, and then they would cast the steel pieces. So I've got so many of these kicking around in a warehouse, but you bolt it to the wall, and it's a place where you can have a coat hook and put your beer down there. So if I can't get a seat at the bar, I can stand here. I can just be a part of it and have a kind of a home base. As we go out to the back, we've got Blagden Alley. And Blagden Alley is just so crazy now. During the pandemic, we ended up inheriting the space behind us for a patio, which before this, there was no patio available. You couldn't get a patio license. And then suddenly the pandemic, everybody's like, we need to be outdoors. And so all these patios open, and now everybody has either a traffic lane or something. And it just seems like that's the new normal. And it always made perfect sense. It was just really hard to get common sense into the equation of we should have an outdoor patio. And then somebody says, well, we should have some regulations. And so as soon as you think you're gonna do something creative, then it gets regulated into something chaotic. One of the really nice things about this building is that my son for many years lived upstairs. And so he and his buddies just were crashing out, and it was just this ecosystem of cool cats hanging out, producing music and creating all kinds of cool content. And then they helped us, of course, do some of the stuff down here. And so it was great to work with my kids on something. And that's something that I really enjoy. And I feel so lucky to have that as part of the equation to building these bars. So here you have it, the back door to Lost and Found. And you come out into this alley, which doesn't feel like much. You've got a few residential houses here. But when you get down this way, it's all bars and restaurants. And this is a brand new restaurant here with a big roof deck. And it's just a madhouse on a nice weekend. Our patio's been a great thing for us to have, a great addition to the business. I'm always shocked at how it's just grown up around Lost and Found and how much Blagden Alley has become a thing in DC. And it's great. I used to say we have a bar in Blagden Alley and people were like, huh? And now if you breathe Blagden Alley, oh, I love that place. It's so cool. And it is cool. One of the things I do love about this is that my friend Roy Johnson lives here. He's lived here since the beginning. He knew Uncle Philip, who used to live in the warehouse here. And we get together and talk about the old days and the new days. In some ways, it's great now because it's cleaner and safer and nicer, but there was sort of a joy to the wildness of this 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think it's great now, and I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for joining us for this, and we'll see you at Lost and Found sometime soon. Take care.